Welcome to the Taped Podcast, the most green podcast in the world. I am your host, Boomer.
And I'm Billy Joe Armstrong.
And today we are going to be doing another installment of our Worst to Best series. Today we're going to be doing them on pop punk veterans, Green Day. You know who Green Day is? There's no need for an introduction, to be fair. You clicked on the video. So we're all assuming that you know who Green Day is. So yeah, I think we should just jump right into it.
Yeah, do you want to start off with your number 13 spot?
I will. My least, I think, number 13, the worst Green Day album is Dose.
My number 13 is also Dose.
Woo! Agreement.
Woohoo.
Alright. I pretty much have the same criticisms I have for Dose with the trilogy of albums that came with this. Like, this album, it sounds fun, to be fair, but ultimately, it's just not. It's substanceless, it's bland, and songwriting is cringy as fuck. Like much of modern day Green Day, the songwriting is absolutely trash on this, and like the song "Fuck Time" made me extremely uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. I hate that song so much. And as for everything else on the album, like, nothing is interesting or like attention grabbing in any way. Nightlife is absolutely awful as well. One of the worst Green Day songs I've ever heard. And I would have been fine without hearing this album ever, because this is just awful. I don't know what band were thinking when they made this, and I'd rather not listen to this ever again, if I'm being real here.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, this album as a whole is just like the dictionary definition of a mess of an album. I think the whole Uno Dos Tres trilogy is definitely a low point in Green Day's career for me. I'll talk about the three albums as a whole in more detail when we talk about the later albums, but yeah, Dose is definitely the worst of the bunch for me. It does share a lot of similarities to the other two, but this album is just so all over the place with its just random left field ideas that just have no business being on any Green Day album at all. There's tracks are just weird, uncomfortable. They just have this really uncomfortable sexual tension to them a lot of the time. It's just not a fun listen. It's, yeah, one that I rather forget exists.
I agree with you. Alright. For me, the worst song on Dose has to be Fuck Time, and Nightlife is up there as well. The best, I don't really like any other songs from this album, to be fair, but if I had to pick, I'd probably just pick Actually.
Yeah, well, my favorite track on the album is the only track I really think is good, and that is Stray Heart. But for the worst one, it's quite a toss-up between like the rest of the album. Hate Fuck Time, hate Lady Cobra, Make Out Party's awful, Baby Eyes is awful, Amy is awful. But if I had to pick one, it would be what I deem to be one of the two worst Green Day tracks, and that's Nightlife. Is that track is horrendous. It is awful. So out of left field. It does not sound like a Green Day song, and it does not sound like it should ever be a Green Day song.
It shouldn't exist.
Agreed.
Alright, number 12, moving on. My number 12 pick, I chose their most recent album, Father of All.
And for my number 12 pick, I agree with you, Father of All.
Woo! Alright. This album was a mess, and people knew it was going to be a mess before it came out. For the simple fact that modern day Green Day are just not good at all. Like, I can respect that it's something they wanted to make, you know? Like, something fun that they would have wanted to try. But it just came out so badly. It's so trash. Like, the mixing on Billy Joe's vocals are absolute garbage. You'd think with all the money that they have, they would have been able to afford better mixing, but fucking hell, this is terrible. The claps in the drums are annoying as fuck. I absolutely hate it on every track, and the album was so short, but it felt longer than it actually was. Like 10 songs,
Yeah.
25 minutes. It felt like an eternity. Like
Eternity in hell.
like
Yeah.
it's what I'd expect from a band that is approaching their 50s at the end of the day. Like
Mm.
there's nothing there's just nothing commendable about this album at all. Like I just don't like it.
Yeah, the album's just, it's cringy, it's uncomfortable, it's uninteresting, it's oddly commercial despite the fuckfest of a promotional campaign, like slamming commercial music.
No trap
Perhaps
beats.
none at all. Perhaps worst of all, it's very boomerish. But at the least I can say it seems like an album they had fun making. And at this point, I've kind of given up on Green Day releasing anything great. So if they're not going to break up, then hey, I suppose they just have fun with it, do what they want. Does not mean this is a good album at all, because this is a woeful attempt at an album. But yeah, that's my opinion.
I agree. Alright, worst track on Father of All from me is Stab You in the Heart. I hate how it blends like hillbilly music with punk, and it just sounds awful. And the best would probably have to be Take the Money and Crawl. That one had nice energy to it, but it's not that great.
Yeah, I agree with you on the worst track. Stab You in the Heart was fucking horrendous. As for the best track, I mean, there's not really any that stand out, but if I had to pick some, I'd pick Oh Yeah, or I Was a Teenager. One of those two.
Teenager.
Awful title.
I was a teenager like you once too.
He once was.
Alright,
He
moving
once
on.
made good music too.
True. Moving on to our number 11 spot. My pick is Revolution Radio.
My pick is Uno.
Revolution Radio, to me, it tries too hard to recapture the American Idiot sound like a lot of previous albums before this. The instrumentation and the songwriting on this album is just really bland and uninspired, and it's just garbage. Like, it could be a tad bit cringy at times, but I don't even remember half the tracks on this album if it weren't for notes. They're just so unmemorable and uninteresting. I don't know, I just don't like Revolution Radio at all. Like, it's definitely one of their worst albums. Like, I didn't really have any highlights from this album, to be fair. Like, most of it all just kind of blended together and just sounded the same. Like, I wouldn't really come back to this either. Like, when you like, picture this in your head. If you want to go back and listen to a Green Day album, would you really want to pick Revolution Radio and listen all the way through?
Nada.
Exactly. I'm done with this album.
When it comes to Uno for me, I think it shares a lot of flaws with Dose and Trey. It's definitely a more by the numbers approach to the modern Green Day style, and not like a weird left field mess like Dose. But while there are some good tracks on here, there's just an equal amount of tracks that make me just cringe and want to turn this album right off. It's not my favorite in the trilogy, but I do think it has some of the better tracks in the trilogy. Far from consistent, though.
True. Worst
best track.
Okay, sorry.
Go.
Worst track off of Revolution Radio for me is Bouncing Off the Wall. And I don't like any songs from this album, but if I had to pick a best, it would probably be the title track.
Off Uno, my favorite tracks were Carpe Diem. I liked that track. Fell For You was pretty good. And Stay the Night was pretty good. Worst tracks, though, Oh Love was complete garbage. It was on the radio everywhere, I remember. God awful. Angel Blue. And the other track that I deemed to be the worst Green Day song ever, Kill the DJ. It's just a bad, like, it's just a shit dance punk song.
It truly is.
And its theme is just blatantly ripped off the Smiths as well.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, Panic, the Smiths song where the refrain is Hang the DJ. Like,
Okay, we're in the top 10 now. The top 10
mm-hmm.
Green Day albums.
Out of 13, though. Don't get too excited.
Yeah, exactly. At number 10, I went with Trey.
At number 10, I also went with Trey.
Trey, it feels more eclectic than everything else that was released in the trilogy. But at the same time, that doesn't make it any good. In fact, it's really mediocre. Like, there are one or two tracks here that I think are pretty cool, that I thought had cool ideas, but the rest were just uninteresting. They blended together very well, and they were just overall boring. And hearing this after listening to Uno and Dose just got really tedious. Like, I don't know, it's nothing that I would ever want to listen to ever again. I mean, I wouldn't want to listen to the trilogy ever again anyway. So, like, I don't know, it just kind of, it's just there. An unnecessary addition to an unnecessary trilogy that went on for far too long.
Yeah, out of Uno Dos Tres, this is probably the most likable one for me. Yet again, I think it shares a lot of flaws with the other two, but for me, it just comes down to the fact that not even the fact that there's more good songs on this album than the other two, because I think Uno wins in that department, but I think it has the the lowest number of just completely awful songs. So while it doesn't, its highs aren't as high as Uno for me, it doesn't have like lows as bad as Uno or Dose does. That being said, it's just not very good, poorly written, dad punk.
Dad punk.
With a few standouts. I think the whole Uno Dos Tres trilogy as a whole had some potential to be at least decent. Each of the albums had at least one good track, but why they chose to just fill up the track listing with so many bad or mediocre tracks that they're left with just three albums, just completely beyond me. It just takes away any enjoyment, even from the good tracks, for me.
Age is a wonderful thing now.
God, no. Not when it comes to Green Day.
Oh, God. Worst track off of Trey for me was A Little Boy Named Train. I just thought that was so fucking boring. And the best track was probably X-Kid.
Yeah, I agree. My favorite tracks were X-Kid and 99 Revolutions. Worst tracks, Brutal Love and Drama Queen for me.
They're up there as well, Jesus. Number 9 picks. Number 9, I chose Uno.
And number 9, I chose Revolution Radio.
We got kind of the same albums out of the way. That's great.
We just swapped two, I think. Yeah, we swapped Uno and Revolution Radio.
Yeah. Uno to me is the best of the trilogy. And that's not saying much. Because, like, it has so many trash songs on here that I would just rather not listen to ever again. But at the same time, it's got some pretty fun tracks that I actually really enjoy. And there's actually some pretty cool instrumentation on it, which kind of put that higher on my list. But at the same time, it suffers from the same dip in quality that the rest of the trilogy did. Like the instrumental being uninteresting for the most part, and songwriting being extremely shit. Like, there's just no other way about it. There's some horrible songs on here, but at the same time, there are some good songs that I do enjoy that I play sometimes. But ultimately, like, it's saying that it's the best of the trilogy, obviously, like I said, isn't much. It's by far a really, it's a bad Green Day album.
Yeah, with Revolution Radio, I think it's obvious that Green Day tried to appeal to some older fans with a more punk rock album, but this is just a punk rock album that's just devoid of any passion, any like real emotion. It's just a fruitless attempt at punk. And while there is one or two good tracks, I think it's a lot of this album is just paint by numbers, cheesy dad punk rock.
Dad punk, jeez.
Exactly, that's how I describe it.
I would kind of describe it like that as well, to be fair.
Yeah,
all right.
That's all I have to say.
Worst track on Uno for me was Kill the DJ. And the best track was probably Let Yourself Go. I like the energy of that track.
My favorite tracks on Revolution Radio were Still Breathing and Bouncing Off the Walls. Worst track, Bang Bang.
That's such a bad title.
What a title as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Alright, number 8, I chose 21st Century Breakdown.
Get ready for some controversy.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to pick. I know what you're going to pick.
Number 8, I chose American Idiot.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew you were going to pick American Idiot. You said you didn't like it before.
Well, here we are.
Okay. 21st Century Breakdown, similar to like the previous albums, well, to Revolution Radio when they spoke about it, it tried to recapture the sound that American Idiot had, and it's not even that good of a sound to begin with, but this one was just okay. Like, it's middle of the road for me. There are tracks on here that are pretty decent, and I really enjoy a lot of the instrumentation on here, and some of the songwriting was pretty good, but overall, it's just a bloated album that I don't really care for all that much. Like, I don't know, it's just long-winded, and I'd rather not listen to it all the way through. But with that being said, I really liked some of the guitar moments on this one. I thought it was pretty decent.
Yeah, American Idiot, I think, is just very overrated. I think there are some good songs, but a lot of this album for me is just uncharismatic, just overly preachy, lifeless arena rock. I can't see why this album blew up as much as it did, but I think those same reasons are the ones that like give me a difficult time with it. Just the songwriting as a whole, I think it was Green Day on the decline. Even though it was probably, arguably, even more successful than Dookie, I just felt like the quality of the music was on a decline. Yeah. I don't have much to say. I just don't find it interesting, really, through and through.
That's fair, to be honest. Alright, worst track for me off of 21st Century Breakdown had to be 21 Guns. And the best was probably Viva La Gloria, the first one.
My favorite tracks on American Idiot, Jesus of Suburbia, that's a great track. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is iconic. Homecoming is great. And St. Jimmy, I like St. Jimmy. Worst tracks, Holiday, Are We the Waiting, Give Me Novocaine, and Wake Me Up When September Ends.
Alright. Number 7, I chose 1039 Smooth Out Slappy Hours.
Number 7, I chose 21st Century Breakdown.
Can I just call it 39 Smooth? Because I'm not saying that whole title. 39 Smooth. It's the debut. It's pretty decent enough for a debut, and the EPs that were bundled in with it are actually decent enough as well, but it's, you know, I have issues with it. I think that some of the songwriting is pretty mediocre, and some of the mixing on this album is a bit off, and it is kind of an uninteresting listen. But it's a cool, like, beginning to Green Day's career, and it showed that they had potential to make great music, and they had potential to, you know, expand their sound, and I think it's just decent enough to begin with, you know? Like, there's not much else to say.
Yeah, with 21st Century Breakdown, I think when it comes to Green Day's later days, I don't think there's an album that's as entertaining to me as 21st Century Breakdown. While it has a similar opera rock concept as American Idiot, in my opinion, I think it's executed a lot better, with a lot more interesting, charismatic, and memorable tracks. Instrumentation throughout is also pretty great. Songs mostly are well written, which is a rarity when it comes to Green Day's later days. And Billy Joel actually sounds pretty good on a lot of these tracks. Yeah, and I just would listen to this any day over American Idiot or any of the tracks I rank lower.
Alright, worst on 1039 Smooth, I think it's 1,000 Hours. And the best song is Going to Pasalaka. Yeah, I hope I'm saying that right.
Probably.
I fucking hope I am.
Best tracks, 21st Century Breakdown, Peacemaker, 21 Guns, East Jesus Nowhere, Viva La Gloria. Worst track is easily Know Your Enemy.
Oh yeah. Oh god. I heard
That's
that on a game soundtrack, and I actually used to like that song.
I mean, I like the song when I was like 12, maybe, but I'm a bit more grown up now.
Same. I'm a big boy.
Hell yeah. Big boy, I'm a big boy now.
No.
Well, that's the best track on Ginger.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it's the best. But it's one of the best.
Here, we're talking about Green Day, not Brockhampton.
Alright. Alright, number 6. My number 6 pick is American Idiot.
My number 6 pick is 1039, Smooth Out Slappy Hours.
Woo! We actually got, again, same albums are being, like, removed. It's sick.
Yeah, pretty similar.
Alright, American Idiot. This album is extremely overrated. It's the moment that changed Green Day's original sound and kind of... It's felt very commercial. It was more political. It was more of a political album. It had political concepts, but the concepts just failed. Like, they just seemed very preachy and pandery, and I don't know, I just don't like the lyrics on this one. It was just very mid. It just seems inconsistent as a whole, and it's a bit too long for my liking. But there are cool bits of instrumentation here and there, and there are some cool songs on here that I pretty much like. But other than that, I just don't really listen to American Idiot as a whole that much, just songs from it. And, you know, being that this is probably their most commercial album, that kind of dragged it down as well, you could say.
Yeah, about Smooth Out Slappy Hours. It is Green Day's first album. It really shows. While it's filled with some pretty catchy songs, fun ideas, it's quite obvious that Green Day aren't what they will become. Yet it's evident, like, from things like the random just bluesy guitar solos that don't really fit in with the pop punk aesthetic. And it just seems like they're just having fun, they're experimenting, and they're just finding their steps. And in the meantime, I think they made a solid album with some really fun tracks. Yeah, I think it's a very enjoyable album, and it's probably one of the first Green Day albums, other than 21st Century Breakdown, it would be the first one that I would recommend.
I would also agree.
Okay,
alright.
Best worst.
Alright, worst track on American Idiot is Holiday. Best's probably Boulevard of Broken Dreams, American Idiot, and Jesus of Suburbia.
Yeah, on 39 Smooth, worst tracks, Don't Leave Me, and Rest, in my opinion. Best tracks, Going to Pasalacqua, I Was There, 409 in Your Coffee Maker, At the Library, Paper Lanterns. Shout out to Going to Pasalacqua, though, because I think that's an S-tier Green Day song, even despite its age.
That is true. I would also agree. Top 5, we made it.
Ooh.
Top 5, boys. Alright, at number 5, I chose Nimrod.
At number 5, I also chose Nimrod.
Yeah! Alright, Nimrod, I really like Nimrod. I like the sound of it. It still has that, like, pop-punk edge to it. It's got some high energy and some great instrumentation, really catchy songwriting from Billy Joe. While not being overly memorable than the albums that I put over it, there are songs on here that I really enjoy, but there are songs that I find a bit boring. But other than that, I'd say it's definitely one of Green Day's better albums, and honestly, it's a really cool album to listen to if you want to just get pumped up or something. If you want to get hyped, you could say, because there's actually some great like instrumentals on here.
Yeah, Nimrod I think was definitely Green Day for the first time really experimenting with many different things, and as a whole, a lot more of these experiments are successful than not. Like from the commercially successful acoustic ballad Good Riddance to the scat punk inspired King Friday. I think there's a lot more here that you would have gotten from Green Day previously, but at its core, it's still very much Green Day, very much their pop punk style. I think the unique style of this album, I think, is a welcome change, as the music on Dookie and Insomniac was great, but you can only make so many songs in that like style without it getting old. And I just think Nimrod was a good step in their career for the time. And yeah, what we were left with was a pretty damn good album.
All right. The worst song from Nimrod is Good Riddance. I hate that song with a burning passion. It's overplayed as hell. And my favorite song is probably Who Wrote Holden Caulfield.
Are you okay?
Yes.
That song is on Kerplunk.
Wait, am I? Oh, I'm reading the wrong shit. Fuck. It's Nice Guys Finish Last. It's Nice Guys Finish Last. My apologies. I was reading my notes wrong. I'm tired. Leave me alone. Apologies.
My favorite tracks on the album were King for a Day, Redundant, Worry Rock, Haushinka, Uptight, and Grouch. Worst tracks, I don't care much for Nice Guys Finish Last, and definitely Good Riddance. The most played wedding song of all time, even though it's a breakup song. Yeah.
Please forgive me for my grammatical error, because I'm. In case you didn't know, I'm extremely tired. All right,
Hey, it's all right.
Number 4. My number 4 pick is Kerplunk.
My number 4 pick is Warning.
I really like Kerplunk. It's a good sophomore album, and it's an improvement on 39 Smooth Sound, and it was the album where I feel like Green Day began to actually find their own sound. Like, the songwriting, I really like it. It's pretty good. It's pretty catchy. It is improved heavily over 39 Smooth. The instrumental department, it's pretty fun. It's really good. The mixing is pretty good on it. And I really like the whole energy of this album too. Like, it's a tad bit inconsistent, but at the same time, it's really enjoyable. Like, there's some great tracks on here. Some of the best Green Day tracks are on here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Warning seems to get overlooked a lot, even by Green Day fans. The sound of this album is definitely more mature and acoustic driven, but in a lot of ways it's very much still Green Day. However, better for worse, mostly I think for worse, this was a kind of a turning point in their career. The album itself, however, is still great, and I wouldn't hold that against them. There are some really catchy songs, there's fun songs, there's punk songs, there's emotional songs like Macy's Day Parade. I think it's, for an acoustic punk album, it's quite unique and like explores different territory. And I think it's a welcome change in their style. But I think it's one that might have led to some not so welcome changes.
Fair. Alright, the worst track on Kerplunk for me was Strangeland. The best was probably Who Wrote Holden Caulfield. I got it correct this time. Yeah.
That's my father of all impression.
Yeah.
The best tracks on Warning, Waiting, Castaway, Hold On, Church on Sunday, and 100% Macy's Day Parade. That's one of my favorite Green Day songs of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Worst track, I would say Warning, the title track.
Fair. Number 3. We're in the top 3, lads. Top 3.
Ooh.
My third favorite Green Day album is Warning.
My third favorite Green Day album is Kerplunk.
Warning, to me, is super underrated by a lot of people, and I feel like it's one of their more experimental releases, you could say, while still maintaining that Green Day edge that they had. For better or for worse, like, they sort of changed their sound. And although it did lead to some, you could say, questionable decisions, I like it. Like, I love a lot of the sounds in this album. I like the songwriting. I think that the what's it called, instrumentation is pretty catchy. I do enjoy a lot of it. I think it's very consistent. It's one of Green Day's most consistent albums, in my opinion. And I listen to a lot of tracks from it all the time. So, yeah, I'd go ahead and put Warning is my number 3 spot.
Kerplunk for me is the point in their career where I think Green Day really began to find themselves. The production is obviously very raw, very unfiltered. This was not a major label album, but I don't think that takes away any enjoyment from the album, and I think the aesthetic actually quite suits it. The instrumentation on the band, like on the album, like really sees the band finally develop into a consistent style, especially with the addition of Trey Cool on drums, who just absolutely kills it on this album and on pretty much every other Green Day album, even the not so good ones. He's always stayed consistently good. There are a lot of tracks on here that are just very catchy, very well written, and quite fun, despite the obviously low budget production. And yeah, it easily stands out as not only a highlight of early day, like pre-major label Green Day, but just the whole career as a whole. I think it's still a standout to this day.
Best to worst tracks. The worst track for me was Warning. Best track, probably Jackass. I think it's underrated.
Yeah, that's a good track. Yeah,
I think it's underrated as hell.
I might have forgotten about that one. you might be correct there. Worst tracks for me, Words I Might Have Ate on Kerplunk. Best tracks, one for the Razorbacks, Christie Road, 2000 Light Years Away, One of My Lies, and Who Rode Holden Caulfield.
Last two.
Okay, we have the same last two.
We have the same last two, but this could change. You never know.
Yeah.
Drumroll, please. The second best Green Day album, in my opinion, is Insomniac.
The second best Green Day album, in my opinion, is Dookie.
Oh, respectable.
Agreed.
Insomniac, in my opinion, it's definitely one of Green Day's best albums. I love the non-stop energetic performances on this album, especially from Billy Joe. He had some really cool vocal performances on this album. The music itself, it's really catchy. I fucking love it. And the songwriting was catchy as hell too. It still maintains that like angsty feel that Green Day are known for. And I think that it's their most consistent album. There's not really many tracks on here that I skip. I pretty much like every track on this album. And it's definitely, well, I don't really have much else to say. Like, it's definitely one of Green Day's best albums.
Yeah, I think Dookie is a 90s classic for very good reason. It's got just iconic pop-punk classics spread out throughout its track listing, just with equally energetic, well-written, and fun deep cuts that fill in the gaps. It has massive hit songs like Basket Case, Long View, When I Come Around, which can often be overlooked because of how commercially successful they are, but they're amazing tracks, and I think they deserve all the attention they get. The instrumentation is fantastic. Like, every instrument is able to shine with brilliant production from Rob Cavallo. The energy of the album is just rebellious and like equal parts fun and entertaining. And it's a standout album of the 90s for me. And it kind of filled that gap in commercial alt rock after the passing of Kurt Cobain, I feel. Green Day kind of made it more punk, made it more pop, I mean.
Yeah, I hear
made it
you.
more fun. And I think this is a standout album in music history.
I would also agree. Alright, best tracks from our picks. Worst track on Insomniac. I like all the songs of Insomniac. If I had to pick, probably like Geek Stink Breath. Just that title.
It's about meth.
Yeah, I know. Just in
Have you
case
seen
you
the
didn't know,
music video?
just in case you didn't know, it's about meth. Okay,
Have you seen the music video?
I have not seen the music video. I actually might watch it after this.
Gnarly. Don't.
I'm watching it. I don't care.
It's someone getting his teeth pulled out.
Bro, I'm watching it anyway.
Oh,
The
boy.
best song is Panic Song.
Oh, best track. I'll start with worst track on Dookie, and the only one that really comes to mind is Chump. I don't care much for Chump. Best tracks: She, Welcome to Paradise, When I Come Around, Coming Clean, Burnout, FOD, In the End, pretty much everything else.
Number one picks, we already know what they are. My number one pick is Dookie.
And mine is Insomniac.
Oh yeah. Alright, by far I think Dookie is Green Day's best album. It's really iconic for the 90s. It's probably the catchiest that Green Day have ever been on an album, with so many of the like hit songs that came from it being respectively very good. Songwriting is really good. The production is pretty good as well. I feel like as a whole, it's been their best. It's been top tier. It's their most consistent album. I would pretty much every time say if I'm in the mood for Green Day, I would probably always want to listen to probably most of the tracks off of Dookie, because I find it that good. Like it's iconic. Like you have to respect it. And the way I see it, it is Green Day's best album. It's the best that they could ever get. And then looking back on it, it's a shame that the same people who made Dookie made the fucking trilogy, Revolution Radio and Father of All.
I'm sure many people share your sentiment. When it comes to Insomniac, I absolutely love the sound of this album, the energy, and even though it was released only a year after Dookie, it's a lot more grown up and raw. And I think it handles a lot darker topics, like on songs like Geek Stink Breath, Brain Stew, or Brat. At the same time, it never fails to like bring forward fun, sing-along, pop-punk songs. Yeah, the whole energy of this album, it feels a lot more punk than pop, in my opinion. And while this isn't the only good Green Day album, for me, I don't think anything else just can beat out the energy and the high I get from listening to Insomniac. And I also can't look over the instrumental performances from the band. I think instrumentally this may be their most impressive album. Great performances from Billy Joe, full of energy, full of passion. Trey Cool is just on point on those drums, and Mike Dern on the bass, I think, shines on this album like he does on no other album. The bass absolutely kills it on Insomniac. Yeah.
Well, that's it. We did
it. Well, we have to say worst and best tracks.
Yeah, worst track on Dookie is probably Chump. I don't really care for that track. Best for me is Sassafras Roots.
Interesting. But worst track, if I had to pick, I wouldn't really have any worst tracks, but if I had to pick, I would say maybe Brain Stew. Best songs, Stewart and the Avenue, No Pride, Babs Yuvilahu, 86, Brat, Armitage Shanks, and definitely my favorite Green Day song, Panic Song.
Hey, there we go.
Alright, we did it.
We actually did it. Give us a round of
record
applause.
Time as well.
Less than 40 minutes. That's very good.
Damn. Yeah.
Alright, so thanks
short
for
and sweet,
checking.
like Father of All.
I wouldn't call that short and sweet, but you know. Alright,
short and painful.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Taped Podcast. Do you agree with our lists? What are your lists? We have necessary links to our Album of the Year pages and our own channels in the description. And yeah, see ya.
And come back on the weekend for some new releases. Woohoo!
Yeah, new episode should be coming out maybe Sunday or Saturday.
Something like that, yeah. Just stay tuned.
Stay tuned, lads. Right.
Alright. Bye.
Good luck.